So everyone online loves talking about Akiya in Japan. Abandoned properties, cheap houses, the big thing at the moment. Japan is super popular, it seems, across the world. Everyone wants to come to Japan, they hear how cheap property is. I see the appeal, but you need to dig a little bit deeper than just, the cheap price tag that we all sort of get drawn to. So in this video, I'm going to try and break down how I found it. I've been operating business in Japan now for about 7 or 8 years, which has been great. I'm super grateful and I love what we do out there, but I'm going to be talking about the other side of it as well. Everything's not super easy. I've worked some of the longest hours I've ever worked in my life in any job, and that's including working FIFO or anything like that. So it's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, but on the other hand, I'm very grateful for what we do out there, so I don't want this video to come across as I'm ungrateful for what we're doing or anything like that. So in this video, I want to break down the brutal truth about buying an Akiya or a cheap property in Japan. A lot of the mistakes people make I've seen along the way, even in Myoko or even, no matter where you are in Japan, there's a lot of mistakes people make along the way. So I'm trying to help you out if you are looking going down this road, things that you may want to look out for, or just to have a good think about it before you actually sort of jump, in with both feet and buy a cheap house in a cheap town somewhere in Japan. For those of you who haven't come across me before, we run Escape Myoko here in Myoko, Japan, which is a number of different businesses, from mainly accommodation to lessons, rentals, and pizza as well. We've been starting to do that the last few years. So it keeps us very busy, especially during the winter months, but then also outside of winter, we're running that as well. But we're not talking about that in this video, just to give you some context around my experience in Japan. So we've been through it, we've brought the properties, we've renovated the properties, we've come along all the traps and pitfalls and things that you come along with it, opening bank accounts, registering companies, all this that sort of comes along with running a business in Japan. A lot more sort of nuances to it as opposed to running a business back in your own country maybe. And then there's the visa situation, which is changing at the moment. I'm not going to be talking about that too much in this video, but it's another thing you've got to factor in, whether you have a visa, are you eligible for a visa, are you a PR, do you speak Japanese? A number of different things we're going to discuss in today's video, to just something to think about before you start jumping on this cheap price, giving away houses for free in Japan sort of bandwagon. So number one, why is Akiya so appealing? I mean, I get it, especially coming from Australia or New Zealand, where you don't get anything for less than $1 million, it seems. I can see the appeal. You can pick up houses for 20, 30, 50, 100 grand, whatever it may be. Obviously the price goes up if you're in a ski town or other sort of areas within Japan, but there are some incredibly cheap properties in Japan. So I see the appeal, and that's where the dream starts. That's where it started for me. That's where it starts for a lot of people. Oh, they see the cheap price tag, see the cheap property, that all seems great. Let's jump straight in and just buy it, which is essentially what we kind of did. Luckily, the first lodger we brought was fairly straight. There was nothing too majorly wrong with it with regards to plumbing or electrical. It was actually running, so it wasn't an Akiya. So it hadn't been abandoned for a number of years or just sitting there collecting snow and just the roof was damaged or anything like that. It was fine. Initially, we did get some roof damage during COVID, but initially the property was sound. Bought it off the original Japanese owner. So it was quite a nice sort of transaction in that regard. And I get it, Japan is amazing. The food, the snow, the culture, the nature, especially once you get out of the cities, it's amazing. I get it. I 100% get the reason. I'm there, I know what I'm been doing there the last few years, but I'm just trying to highlight some of these other things that you may overthink before you sort of fall in love with the idea of buying a cheap property in Japan. So the cheap price is something you really need to understand. There's probably a bit more to the story than just the cheap price. There could be a number of things wrong with the property. It may be termite damage. Struck a little problem here in the floor, which I wasn't aware of. We've obviously had some termites or something at some point here. As you can see, the joists are not so good. So that's the little project I'm working on, rip all this out. This is going to be the pizza corner in this little area. Maybe the roof's damaged, maybe the location as well. This is a big one you've got to factor in, is the location of where it is you may be looking at buying this property. If you start going out a little bit wider and start going a bit more rural, there will be some incredibly cheap property in Japan. You found a cheap property, you'll say, but that's when the costs really start showing up. You've got renovations costs, taxes, legal costs, talking to scriveners, furnishings, heating, snow removal, a number of different things. A lot of unexpected problems you may have not overthought, heating the water, heating the house, heating the lodge, whatever it may be. This is where the costs can just start going out of control. And location is a big one. Now, if you're not so much buying up to buy into a ski town, then it's not too bad, but especially if you're looking at buying something and renovating it and I don't know what your eventual plan is, that's up to you whether you want to do this or not. But let's say you buy a house for $50,000, for example, and then you spend another $200 on it. The house might still only be worth $50,000 if you were to try and resell it. Even though you've got it all looking nice, that's just what the going price is in that area, similar sort of age of the houses and that sort of thing. But these are things you definitely want to put a lot of thought into around the location of the property itself. Especially once you start going a bit more rural. No one seems to really want to live rural in Japan anymore. Everyone wants to, I'm talking more the local Japanese now, want to live in the cities, Tokyo, Osaka, Nagano, wherever it may be. They want to be in quite close proximity to the cities. That just seems the way of the culture, it seems. Not as many people want to be moving away and living in the ski towns, which to me seems quite odd. Coming from New Zealand, there's a lot of people that want to live close to the mountains, or especially down Queenstown, Wanaka, areas like this, very hot for wanting people to live close by and work remotely or whatever it may be. So don't bank on capital growth, especially the more rural you go. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe in ski towns it's an exception to that rule. We've seen some huge huge capital growth, especially in Niseko and Hakuba and even Myoko over the last sort of 7 or so years. We've seen some quite substantial capital growth, which is good, but yeah, that's more isolated to the ski towns and probably more beach towns and these sort of things as well. Renovation, that's where the dream really gets tested. When you start doing renovations anywhere, renovations aren't easy by any means. We do a lot of the renovation work ourselves, which makes things a little bit easier in Japan, but only slightly, because it takes time to understand where to get the materials, and what can you do yourself legally, or do you have to get contractors in to do the plumbing, the wiring, and all this sort of thing. Now there's new requirements coming in to make sure that house or the lodge or whatever it may be is earthquake proof. They'll only work with you if you get recommended from another customer or another friend or something. If you just try and ring them up, hey mate, I need you to plumb in a new bathroom or something, they might come have a look, they might say yeah, it sounds good, and then you may never hear from them again. So this is the big one, finding trades to do the work. It's not just, and especially if you're not there on the ground, you go back to your home country or wherever that may be, quite often nothing really happens while you're not there. So you really need to actively be there, either on the tools yourself or getting a team around you there that can help you through this process, and be prepared to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially if you're talking about kitchens, bathrooms, showers, the whole show, that sort of thing, flooring, whatever, heating, insulators, replacing the windows, whatever it may be. This is where the cost can really start going up on these older sort of properties. So yeah, at times can be stressful, and we've done it on a budget. We don't have bottomless pocket. We can just keep throwing money at it, which generally will get you through it. But a lot of people, especially myself and a lot of other people in town, we're not that fortunate, so we do a lot of the work ourselves. And yeah, you're constantly hitting roadblocks. How do I fix this? How do I do that? Where do I buy this? It's not as simple as just going down to local Bunnings and picking up whatever it may be. How do I fix this? How do I, things you might not be quite familiar with, how the plumbing or the electrical or whatever it may be to where you're back home. So these are things you've got to factor into it as well. So owning the property, like I mentioned, is fairly straightforward. Buy property, anyone can buy property. You can buy property this afternoon. You don't have to be Japanese or anything. This may change in the future where they might sort of restrict who can own, property freehold or land or whatever. But at the moment, it's still somewhat fairly straightforward. Buying the property is probably the easiest thing, to be honest, about the rules and regulations with operating a minpaku or ryokan or whatever it may be that you're looking to do. If you're wanting to run a guest house or set up any other sort of business as well, there's also a lot of sort of red tape in that regard, which you need to sort of look into before you sort of just, I'm going to do this and set up a random cafe or whatever you want to do. Surf shop, ski, snowboard rental, whatever it may be. A lot of things you've sort of got to look into before you sort of jump straight into it. Sort of come and go throughout the year and work on things, and just to try and keep the business running, even though the winter season is quite short. It's only looking at 2.5, 3 months really. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes in that run up to winter, things you need to work on. You only have a short sort of 7 or 8 months to do the work that needs to be done if you need to do some renovation work, especially externally. Internally, you can keep sort of going through winter, but you don't really want to be doing internal renovations in winter either. So here's a few things to think about before you just randomly jump in and buy property in Japan. Firstly, ask, why is this property so cheap? Talking to parents and friends and family and everything back home, or saying, look, this place is incredibly cheap in a ski town. To me, it seems like a no-brainer, but then, people are always a bit skeptical. Why? There must be something wrong with it. So yes, what is the true cost? This is how much it costs, this is how much you're going to put into it, and this is where it sort of stacks up in the end. And then the pain from there to there. There's a big gap of things you need to organise to get to that point. Thirdly, can you realistically manage this from overseas? And fifth, think about what you're actually trying to achieve here. What is it? Is this just so then you can go over there with your friends or your family and have a good ski holiday, or are you looking to move to Japan, or you have a Japanese partner? What is the reasoning behind this? There's got to be a bit more to it, because it's not that easy. No matter how you skin it, I'm trying to make this video as honest as possible. So then my final thoughts to wrap it up. So is buying Akiya in Japan worth it? Yes, I 100% think it can be for the right people, but just give it some thought before you sort of just jump straight into it. And go on with your eyes wide open. Don't sort of think, it's only 50 grand. If I lose it, I lose it. You can go with that train of thought, but I don't know. I would give it some more serious thought, before you sort of just jump straight into it. Don't get lured into that, it's cheap, and if I don't jump now, next week it might be worth 100 grand. It might not be. It may be. Who knows? Yeah, it's one you've got to give a bit more thought to than just sort of randomly jumping on a property because you saw it cheap online somewhere, or someone was talking about it on Instagram or TikTok or something. But if you are prepared to, spend some time in Japan and being part of the community in Japan as well, that's a big one, especially in Japanese culture. Being part of that community, being friendly with your neighbours, helping out with snow clearing or whatever it may be, whatever system they have to work, being part of that, being active in the community, big part about Japan. I can't stress that enough, actually. And we try our hardest to be active in the community, even with our limited Japanese. We constantly, we don't want to be seen as the annoying gaijin that's just playing up or doing something stupid. Spend some time out there working on the property, getting it renovated or whatever you want to do. It's great. I mean, I love renovating properties. It's something I quite enjoy, seeing the project come through. But also, going with a bit of a buffer. Don't just think, I'll try and do it for 10 grand or something. There's a good chance you won't be able to pull anything up for 10 grand. Really going with a big buffer and some again to factor in all the costs and things, the unknowns that maybe, especially prices for everything seem to be going up all over the world, and Japan's not excluded from that as well. So for us, life in Japan, it's been honestly one of the best things I've ever done in my life, I think. But also one of the hardest. Like I've worked in, both me and my wife and the team, we work a lot of hours to build what we've built. And it's taken a huge amount of work to build that. And I think that's the part that people need to sort of hear a bit more, not just like, oh yeah, roll in and ski pow and drink beers and then that's all fun. That is fun, but there's a lot more work that goes into it just to that. If you just want to buy a house to live in it, that's not too bad. You could probably pull that off fairly straightforward, get it up to a livable standard, and then live out your days in Japan skiing pow. That's a good option. The visa thing might be a bit tricky around that, but that is an option. But yeah, if you're trying to run a business off the back of the property or whatever, that's where it gets a lot trickier as well. So if you want to learn more about buying property in Japan, probably check out this video over here. It goes into more detail about buying actual property in Japan, websites you can use and that sort of thing. All right, till next time, catch you in the next one.